And I have my guest in the studio. Abdul Aziz Mohammed is a member of parliament for Myong constituency. Good morning to you, Abdul.
Good morning, Roland.
And Dr. Bernard Okoboy. Dr. Okoboy is a member of parliament for Lejokuku.
My brother.
Miniano.
By His grace.
That's right.
It's good.
You're well dressed for the post SHS,
I'm telling you.
free SHS. Were you at the event yesterday?
In the future, the students are going to look like.
Ask me a question. Were you there yesterday?
Were you
Yeah,
there?
I was there.
You were.
Very momentous.
How many SHS or senior high schools do you have in your constituency?
We have about four.
All public?
Technical. No, I think all are public. Yes.
All are public.
Yes.
Okay.
One is pseudo private. It was started privately, but absorbed by government.
So they are enjoying free SHS.
Yes, of course.
That's good. For me, I think free SHS is good. The NDC says that what you are implementing is progressive. You agree? Because not everybody is captured.
Let me say a very good morning to your viewers.
And your constituents.
And my brothers and sisters watching from Lejokuku. Yes, it's the rollout. Of course, we are starting with the first years, so it can be termed as systematic or graduated or like they say progressive. But you see, it is the angle from which they apply the progressive that makes it contentious. And let me explain. Their argument is that they've started free SHS already, and that they said it was going to be progressive until we get to this stage. But if there are 3 years, 3 classes within the free SHS system, as in SHS system, secondary system, first year, second, third year, if it had been progressive and the progressive had preceded us, we should have had the second or third years enjoying what the first years are enjoying. But
now. Still, there was some substitution somewhere.
The subventions have existed since Adam. They had subventions during their time, during Rawlins's time, Kufuor's time, Mohammed's. So the subventions have been inherent. So once you start referring to it, then you'll be caught in all governments. But this is unique to this particular government. So the progressive they mention in trying to justify their mantra cannot hold. And
what about this argument that is still progressive? Only you have expanded the scope of the progressive. You
see, I think I'm being clear and emphatic that if there was their progressive application, when they use the term progressive, they want to say that the thing has started and that we are only continuing. But the second and third years, who are in the system now, are not enjoying what the first years are enjoying. What it means that what has been rolled out now was not in existence. So you can't apply progressive nature to it. It is starting with these people. Even if it's progressive, the first batch is the first years. So you can't refer to a previous government as having started it when applying the word progressive. I think that is clear.
So your point is that they really never started what you are doing now.
Exactly. Otherwise,
but they were still subventing or perhaps also...
And I've told you that was structural, inherent. It's been there for all governments. And now, someone said something very interesting, that the second and third years, if the NDC says they started free SHS, how come they the same people are saying apply it to them to give them something like you are doing to the first years? They should have been receiving from them already. So I think that is back to the issue. Now, let me start by saying that yesterday, the president started the speech by saying that it was a happy day. Yesterday was 12, right? 12 of September.
Yes, it was.
Yeah. He termed the day or classified as a happy day. My brother, yesterday saw the rollout of the second biggest social intervention in the history of this country. The one which comes only before it is that of the National Health Insurance. Yesterday saw the biggest rollout. And you know what? I'd like to congratulate His Excellency the President, Dr. Baumia, the head of the executive, Dr. Matthew Opoku-Prempeh. These guys have been working round the clock to make sure that this rollout is smooth and successful, despite albeit the few hitches here and there. You need to be a leader who is very audacious to try to roll out such a policy that is that grand in form and national in terms of coverage. Remember, we had a few feeding, we had some pseudo private and pseudo free SHS in the north. I call it pseudo because feeding grants and certain items were absorbed by government. Even with that, it is so common to hear of schools being shut down because the grants delayed or they've not been paid. Schools closed down. That was when it was restricted to only 3 regions. And now you have a government that is rolling out this policy on a national scale, that grant informed, and yet payments have been made across board, 20% before reopening of school. And what even makes it more interesting, what actually exhibits the commitment of the president to make sure this thing is smooth, is that this government has paid all the grant arrears that were being owed in the north. They've been paid up to now, cleared. So, Roland, as for the commitment of the president, it is unquestionable. One thing that I am very, very excited about also is that for the first time, the books, the textbooks that the students need. In the past, you have students reaching the second year or second, third term before the first year books arrive. Roland, for the first time, all students have received their books up to the third year. First year students have received books they will need all the 3 years, so that there's no excuse. So that those who are quick in terms of absorbing syllabus can even try to start ahead and read. That is very, very innovative. Now, I want to say that free SHS is no more a dream, like the president said yesterday. And the president said something which was very interesting, which was very, very telling. He said, I don't want students to be in school only for the, how do you call it, the purpose of getting knowledge from books, but for the experience one gains in having attended SHS. I'm a very independent person. In fact, after SH, I went to Presec. After the boarding house, anywhere you place me in this world, I can be on my own. And it's largely due to the experience gotten from being housed at the boarding institution. And I've mentioned it on this platform.
So you're saying that when you're a day student, it means you don't have those abilities?
No, there are some experiences you get in boarding house. There is nowhere you can buy that from. I mean, anyone who's been in the boarding house will tell you. Because you were with your parents the whole time. And all of a sudden, you are supposed to respond to a structure in an organized institution. And you have to learn to obey time, to take instructions from people who are not your direct relatives. You learn to obey order. And you know what? I've said it here, and that is the most important aspect of free SHS. That what is happening is not an attempt or an effort in fulfilling a campaign promise. It is an exhibition of the affinity that we have as a government for the poor and the compassion for the vulnerable. You have to be a compassionate leader to insist on making sure that secondary education is free. Not only capacity or competence, compassion. And that is what this president has that others did not have. Beyond competence, he has compassion. And let me land with this. From class 1, the basic education, let's say from class 1 to JSS 3, most places, if you are not in a private institution, government is virtually free. Is that not it? The only time parents come into reality with facing a difficulty is when they are crossing from JHS to SHS. And when I was about to cross, it took my mother's utensils to cross. We had to go and sell utensils she had since the 80s, the finest, to get money to enter Presec. My brother, if she had not had those utensils, you would have met me on the streets trying to hustle you. So this president is very conscious, and the promise to do free SHS since 2008 was not out of a vacuum. It was only after the president, His Excellency, had interacted with Ghanaians across the country. And this is the landing notes, and you have to, everybody must remember this. When you're a leader, you have to choose between two things. Either you invest in your citizens or you invest in a few who might be cronies and friends. This president has chosen to invest in the future of this country and not a few. I'm not going to refer to the few who benefited in somebody's era, but this is a choice the president has made. It's going to cost an average of 600 million Ghana cedis to run this program a year. That could have been put in other programs. I wouldn't call them dubious, but the president has chosen to invest in the future. And our human resource is renewable. Our natural resources are not. Gold will finish one day. Timber will finish. The oil we extract will finish. But an educated citizen will replicate its own. When you're educated, it will be strange to find that your children are uneducated. The man or woman who is educated ends up usually having an educated child. And that is the hope of this country.
Very succinct. Addo, but so for all the critics, the thing is, your party accepts that this free SHS is a good policy.
Yes, we do.
So your difficulty is with the way the MPP is implementing it? You think it's clandestine?
Maybe by the time I finish making my submission, you would have understood not just my position, but the position of the NDC and the minority in Parliament. Let it be put on record that the NDC as a party, the minority in Parliament today have never opposed free senior high school. And thank God that my colleague here has not made any attempt to allude to that. I have listened to some uninformed members of his party, communicators, proceed on that tangent to suggest that the NDC was against free senior high school right from day one and that we are still against it. That is not true. Let me place it on record. We have had issues with the way and manner it was pledged, and we've had issues with the way it is being implemented. Yesterday was another day for some sort of jamboree by the president, the vice president, and the MPP government. Earlier on, they had a program to launch the logo of the Free Senior High School. They inaugurated the secretariat. They appointed an ambassador who does even school in Ghana. And so the jamboree has been one too much for us. And we are wondering what the president and the government seeks to achieve. But yesterday before I went to bed, I was just trying to go through the speech of the president. And I realized that I ended up marking almost every space on the paper. For instance, this is the speech that President Nana-Addo submitted yesterday to the Ghanaian public. Second paragraph. This is what, no, let me take you to the fourth paragraph. I made the pledge of providing every Ghanaian child with access to senior high school. This is the president still repeating what they pledged in their manifesto. And you remember I have been very, very consistent with my position on that matter, that the MPP must be humble enough to admit and apologize to the Ghanaian public that they promised to do universal free senior high school, and that what they are doing today is a progressive free senior high school, something contemplated and expressed by the 1992 Constitution. In fact, the NDC in our manifesto, and I have our manifesto here, pledged to expand the progressive free senior high school, because it is not true that free senior high school only started yesterday in this country. Whoever would make that attempt or that argument is ill-informed about happenings in this country. Don't let us deceive ourselves. In fact, it started in 2015-2016 academic year. What happened in 2014-2015 academic year was to do a scholarship for some 10,400 pupils. But in the 2015 budget, free senior high school, progressive though, was announced, and as much as 320 day students were enjoying free senior high school for the 2015-2016 academic year.
320,000.
Yes, 320,000 day students. It was increased to about 450,000 students, day students, for 2016-2017 academic year. The records are there. You can cross-check from all the schools across the country. What we intended to do, that was captured clearly in our manifesto in the run-up to the 2016 elections, was to expand it to include boarding students. And our target was not all boarding students, but to deal with those who were needy, the vulnerable. And so let it be on record that we have always argued for a progressive introduction of free senior high school, because we think that, one, our economy is not in a state to support a universal secondary school now. We didn't want to rush into the program that will compromise quality. And so we have warned all along that free senior high school is good, but be cautious with the way you do it. Let me just give you a very clear demonstration of the challenges that we warned the MPP about. That is beginning to show in their faces. Why? On the 8th of August, the Deputy Minister for Finance stated clearly that the money for the free senior high school was available and was ready. He said an amount of 480 million Ghana cedis was ready, and that they were going to release just half. And specifically, she mentioned 240 million Ghana cedis. Only for us to be told last Monday that 20% had been released to those schools. Even as we speak today, this morning, no headmaster can confirm to anybody that the money has hit their accounts. These are some of the challenges that we thought that the president and the MPP ought to have paid respect to. But you see, they prefer doing the usual MPP, NDC propaganda, that anything that has to do with national interest, they would want to play politics with it, and we want to paint the picture as if the NDC has been against free senior high school. Now, when I was going through the speech of His Excellency the President, for instance, he said that over the last 4 years, an average of 100,000 BECE graduates who, I'm sure he meant who are placed in our public senior high schools each year, do not keep up their places. This means that in the next decade, about 1 million of our young men and women would have had their education terminated at the junior high school. Such a situation is totally unacceptable, and I am determined to end it. This is why my government is today beginning the implementation of the free senior high school policy. Like I indicated, it's not true. This year, the number of students who could not have accessed senior high school has dropped to 36,000 students. This is not true. I challenge the president, I challenge the Minister for Education, and I challenge the Ministry of Education to give us details to confirm that every year, for the last 4 years, under the tenure of President Mahama, on the average, 100,000 students did not access free senior high school because of cost. It is not true. And suddenly you have reduced it to 36,000 just in some 7 months into office.
Okay, the available statistics, I believe, was even published by the Daily Graphic 2 days ago, give every indication that we've had since placement.
Yes.
That we've had averagely about 100,000 students not going to school at all, not taking up those places.
As a result of?
As a result of many factors.
According to President Nana-Addo, and I have the speech here, he attributed that, even if that is true, he attributed it to cost. I say that's not true. No. And he said, listen to my brother, and he says he has reduced it to 36,000 students, pupils. The 36,000 that we have today are those who did not meet the pass mark. Those who did not meet the pass mark. 36,000 students.
We're talking about those who meet the pass mark, but do not take up the place. Exactly. We're talking about those who have met pass mark, who can be enrolled into senior high schools.
Exactly. Now the president says that under President Mahama, because he said for the past 4 years, clearly President Mahama was the president of the Republic, that on the average, 100,000 students did not take up their places as a result of cost, and that he has reduced it to 36,000 students.
And you think that's contentious?
That is very it's not true. The 36,000.
Is it contentious or is not true?
It's not true. You have just confirmed that those are the 36,000 are those who have not passed to be admitted into the senior high schools. And so let's get the differences right. Now, there were some other things that he related to that he failed to acknowledge. For instance, the TTEL, the senior, the secondary education improvement program. These are all babies of President Mahama and the NDC, the very regime that he referred to as incompetent. And so what we are saying is that with which government will, whatever we would do to support them, we would only advise them to extricate themselves from the pure propaganda and lies that they are engaged in. We are all interested in building a very resourceful human talents. We are committed to helping the regime to succeed in respect of the free senior high school. Of course, our position, like I indicated earlier, was to expand the progressive introduction of free senior high school. And remember, between 2009 to 2016, about 190 senior high school buildings were constructed. Remember, in the run-up to the 2012 elections, our argument was that let's do access first, let's expand access before we do free senior high school. And so we embarked on a very massive infrastructural development in respect of senior high schools. New buildings were commissioned, dormitories were constructed, capacity of teachers enhanced, ICT lab. So free senior high school is not the only panacea. It's not the only solution to enhancing education at the secondary school level. That is not true. And let me even tell you today, there are school fees, there are some charges that schools are asking parents to pay. I have on my phone that parents have sent to me that when we went to register our kids.
Which schools are those?
Oh, for instance, I have seen that one of Tamale Secondary. I have it on my phone.
They are made to pay some extra charges.
Exactly. And so
are they fees that the GES or government should have been absorbing?
I'm unable to tell, but for instance,
because we have fees that the government and the state is supposed to absorb.
And let us also admit that government cannot entirely fund education for parents. For instance, uniforms. Those who are reporting for school, those who reported.
I get the uniforms are supposed to be free.
It is not true.
No, it's part of the capture that if you want to extra, you can go buy extra.
It is not true. I am telling you why. Somebody is reporting on the 12th of September. Even before 12th September, you didn't even know the person. How could you have sewn the person's uniform? There are still expenses that parents would incur. And so to a large extent, it will remain a very heavy subsidy.
Those cannot be uniforms.
And let me tell you, Roland. As at the time President Nanado, then candidate Nanado was going around campaigning, he was speaking to those who were in first year, now second year, those who were in second year, now third year. His message was directed to them. He was not talking to prospective senior high students. Today, you've won power. My friend says it's a graduated free senior high school, not progressive. It is graduated.
I said your progressive applications.
Oh, you say graduated and we use progressive. I
use about 3 words: systematic, graduated.
Systematic.
And I said progressive is some way.
You see, they are now beginning to see the realities of life. He's now admitting that being graduated. Go and read your own party's manifesto, which I have here, page 104, 107. You talk about free senior high school for all, universal free senior high school, and this is the NDC manifesto where we talk about expanding progressive senior high school, because these students today, as we speak, before President Donaldo became the president, these students were enjoying free senior high school. It's on record.
Roland,
so stop the lies and propaganda.
A few rebuttals. Go ahead. On a lighter note, I told somebody, when you have a president who is so committed to a program, and you have a finance minister, Ken Ofori-Atta, who is also so committed, money is not a problem. We are committed to the extent that whatever it costs to run this program,
you'll find the money.
We know it is a venture that is worth investing.
You'll find the money.
And the president used an expression that was so powerful yesterday, and that was the part that I took home, that people might consider the program as not cheap or expensive, but you appreciate how inexpensive this program is when you meet a citizen that is uneducated. The ramifications of education, the externalities of education are so huge that cost cannot be a reason for not going into it. And you know what? The 100,000 people that the president referred to as 100,000 students or children, citizens who fall out yearly as a result of not being able to continue. I like it when you virtually mention what I'm coming to say, that it's a mosaic of reasons. It's not one. Some are unable to continue because they don't have the finance. Others maybe might opt for skills acquisition. Maybe the mother or the father puts them into some skills program, so they don't go to the classical or conventional SHS. Others might even travel out of the country. The details the president didn't give, but the fact is that about an average of 100,000 don't continue. And it is also true that there is a significant percentage of these 100,000 who are unable to continue as a result of finance. So with such a program, obviously those who use or who are unable to continue as a result of finance have been taken care of by this policy. You know what? TTL, there are a lot of programs that are supposed to cushion and make sure that we cushion the teacher and make sure that we have improvement courses, continuous professional development courses for teachers and all that. TTL is one of them. The president did not say anywhere that is an exclusive property of this government. But what is obvious, and he agrees, is that when you're a government, you continue with programs that you find commendable. And TTL is one of them. I learned by reminding him that this year, if he's had receipts in front of him, applications, I have had letters wanting help to pay school fees. None of them is in the first year. All my letters in front of me now from the constituent is second and third year. So, and I was with one NDC brother who said, look, I'm coming. My bills. Oh, but we make references. You don't want to personalize. Who said that the bills is paying for second and third year? It's about 20,000 Ghana cedis. You reduce it to 10,000. If you are paying 10,000 for second and third years, at the first year proportion, it means you have paid 15,000 if the first years were inclusive. In 2 years' time, every MP, including my good brother, would be saved from the hustle of paying fees at the second cycle level. All of us will be affected. And you are able to tell how good a policy is. Immediately realize that the policy is blind to political affiliation, blind to religion, blind to class, blind to race. This particular program is affecting kids who have NDC parents I'm not talking just NDC executives, who have NDC, MPs. It's affecting people whose religion don't even allow them to vote. They don't participate in the democratic process. Jehovah's Witness, I know some who don't vote. Their parents will benefit. That is how you tell that the government is really interested in ensuring equity, access, and quality. These are the three.
Okay, as you speak about all that, we have schools that don't have commensurate or complementary accommodation. They have shortage of facilities which will complement the increased numbers, and likely also to affect the quality of the livelihoods they live on campus. And even some externalities like people being posted or allocated schools where they are not in those areas or in those regions. And those are the other perhaps negatives that we also need to deal with. How do we deal with those ones?
You know, every policy has ramifications. And one of them is what you cited.
So you said they are the guinea pigs. No, they should sacrifice for the system.
No, you don't get.
For the overall good of the policy.
Is that now,
are you saying they should sacrifice for the overall good of the policy?
No. What I mean is that the consequence must be worked on. You set out a task of giving free finance, like financing the education. Now access has increased, so you have a duty to expand infrastructure, and that we admit. Yesterday the president put it in a nice way that we will falter, but not fall. It is impossible to have a policy, no matter how forward-looking you were, have a policy rolled out and not face challenges. The criticisms my brothers are bringing, I always say that I don't have a problem with it. You need criticisms to fine-tune every policy you roll out. Just that some of their criticisms is suspect, but most of them is genuine. Only a few are suspect. So it's good to have all of them. In fact, there are criticisms that came within our own party from some people. But of course, as part of
what were some of them?
I'm coming. As part of the organizational work or organizational behavior, you know where to put it. One classical one is where the policy dictated that if you don't qualify for free SHS now, you cannot enter. I know specialists in our party in education who told some of our policy guys that, look, as for this, take a look at. And quickly, I'll commend the Minister of Education for that. Quickly, it was reviewed that when you receipt and you qualify, you'll be absolved. And that is a trait which is helping this government to listen and not claim or pretend that you know everything. So most of their criticisms will be absorbed. And one thing I can assure everybody, including myself himself, is that next year's rollout would obviously be better than this year's rollout, because the lessons of today will be captured tomorrow.
So you have no difficulties again. So
no, we don't have
some difficulties.
All that we want is the humility to accept. Look, let me just share some figures with you. These same figures we churn out. We churned out when we had a press conference on Monday.
That's the minorities press conference.
Exactly.
So which speech
today,
is this? Which speech are you?
Oh, this is the
minorities.
Yes, exactly. I just want to share some. Okay. I just want to share some figures with you. Today, about 310 students have been placed by the.
You mean 1,000?
Yes, 310,000. The computerized preparation system.
About
300. Oh, my brother, take it easy. You can come back when I'm done.
Okay.
Today, as we speak, we have about 285,450 students in second year, and we have about 954 students in third year. Put together, about 404 students who are currently in school will not be benefiting.
You mean 1,000 students?
Yes, will not be benefiting from the free senior high school.
Over 500,000.
Exactly. About almost 600 1,000 students
Okay.
will not be benefiting. And so when you have about 310 students benefiting, and about twice that number not benefiting, you cannot say it is a universal free education. And so you must be able to admit to some of these shortcomings of your government. You say our criticisms are laced with mischief, and yet you don't have a standard. No, you say you are laced with mischief, and yet you don't have a standard to tell which critique is real and which is laced with mischief. All that we are saying is that do it and do it well. If it must be done, it must be done well. As at the time we were leaving office, more than 450,000 students, day students, were enjoying free secondary education, day students. And we intended expanding it to include some boarding students based on need basis, not this your 419 free senior high school that you are doing. So just be humble enough to admit.
Abdulaziz, but the overall consideration is that once we're doing wholesome, perhaps substitution or subvention of senior high school education, then because we know that by 2019, all of them, 2019 going to 2020,
all of them would have been on board.
Yes.
Progressive. And graduated, as he said.
And looking at the numbers, we're likely to get close to 1 billion, or if not 900,000 or 800,000 students in school who would have been part of the because now we have 310,000 placed. We also have
close to 1 million.
Almost close to 1 million.
And so we must be looking at a reliable, sustainable funding regime.
That's what we.
If you listen to the president yesterday,
he says oil resources.
No, he didn't say oil.
No, he said natural resources.
Natural resources, and so they are now scrambling for.
They are not scrambling. Natural resources, we know, right? Natural. You did a bit of geography.
No.
You know natural resources, minerals from the
I do.
Gold,
I do.
Bauxite.
Timber.
We have diamond,
timber,
even right now,
Roland.
and then we have oil.
Roland.
So natural resources.
Roland. We have no difficulty with using whatever resources of this country to enhance our human resource base. Remember Minister Osafo Mafu,
the senior minister.
The senior minister made some remarks to the fact that government was considering using the heritage fund, the oil resources, to fund the senior high school. Then we came out to point out to him that that would have been unlawful without amending the Petroleum Revenue Management
I'm sure it will be amended.
I'm making a point here. You don't roll out a program before thinking of the funding sources. If you intend to do a universal free senior high school policy, you should have thought of how to fund it. That's why today they will say 50%. The next day, why? In the budget, the 2017 budget that was presented to myself and my good friend here, an amount of 400 million Ghana cedis was earmarked for the free senior high school. The deputy minister on 8th of August talked about 486 million Ghana cedis. 400 million and 486 million Ghana cedis are not same in one. You promised to release 50% of it within the next 48 hours, only for you to release just 20% of it. The 400 million that they earmarked for free senior high school is just for a term. It's just for a term. The term has about 12 to 14 weeks. So if you have released 20% of it, what it means that you are only paying for at least 2-3 weeks of their stay in school. So government must be preparing again to release some other funding in the next few weeks to come. And so we think that there are still some funding challenges, and government should be thinking of a more reliable and sustainable funding regime. I'm not surprised.
But you approved the budget. When you as MPs approved the budget, where did you, or which question did you ask about where the sources for those expenditures will be coming from?
Oh, these questions we've asked on the floor of Parliament. We've even asked using the media space. And anytime you ask that question, you are either seen as a saboteur or a doom monger. Just like my friend is saying this morning that our criticisms are laced with mischief, when he's unable to tell me what makes a real critique and what makes a critique laced with mischief. And so I have a very big problem with the attitude. So when you listen to Osafo Mafu say Heritage Fund, now the president is saying that our natural resources, be bold, Mr. President. Tell us that we want to encumber oil resources to fund senior high school. Be bold and tell us. There was one lecturer in one of these public universities, one Dr. Asibe. I understand he's a brother to Dr. Asibe, the chairman of the finance committee.
Mark Asibe.
Yes. You see,
we are talking about Eric Osei-Asibe.
They are very cunning.
Osei-Asibe.
I think so.
With the Department of Economics.
I think so.
He's a brother?
I mean, I'm not too sure.
I'm sure it's
I'm
just
not
a
too
name.
sure. I'm not too sure.
It's a namesake.
I stand for correction.
It's
but
a namesake. We haven't been able to ascertain that, not at all.
Exactly.
They don't
and
even look alike.
And so myself, I'm very careful with that.
But you just said it.
But you see, sometimes
I'm correcting you.
Roland, you know, in politics, a lot of interesting things happen. They started using the academia to propose some 1% increment in VAT. And they didn't see the response so good. That same doctor made a public statement to the fact that government should consider increasing VAT by 1%.
Now, we've had Kofi Bento. You know Kofi Bento also
Yes.
saying it. You know he's the vice president of the money.
Politicians would use academia and civil society sometimes to test the waters.
So you think that's what they are doing?
When they did that and that didn't fly.
But this time, nobody has said anything.
Akufo-Addo is going back to use what Osafo Mafu said, that let's use our oil money. Now he says natural resources. Is it cocoa, gold, or oil? Be bold enough. You can't roll out such a bold policy without a funding regime to support it.
All right.
You must learn to govern and govern well.
So at the end of the
lies.
how do we fund it? I think that when I saw that news item by Joy, I'm sure couched from the discussions on Joy Super Morning Show, Kofi Bento proposing VAT. I thought it looks laudable. Paying an extra percent or two on VAT is not a bad thing.
When they are reducing taxes and taking taxes away.
Bible puts it in a very succinct manner.
You've got the Bible inside, yes. What about the Hindus who use the Sanskrit?
No. I'm using what I practice. That is not. Doesn't go to church. It should not be interpreted as an affront to the others. Where your heart is, there would your word be. There would your treasure also be. The heart of this government, the heart of this president, His Excellency Akufo-Addo, is in this particular program. That the only equitable and progressive way to make opportunities available, no matter where you're coming from, is this program. And wherever we will get the resources. And you know what? The president did not say that we are now thinking about using natural resources. He was explicit. He said we are going to use what we get from our natural resources to fund it. And I'm happy you quoted. And you know what?
Oil.
In the S2R government, in some years past, I don't want to mention personalities, we were able to pay an individual close to $50 million when we did not plan for it. It was not in the budget for that year. But because a particular leader found it expedient and necessary, he found the money. And it went into a private account, not even a company account. In this country, we were able to pay a company 98 million Ghana cedis to fumigate corners of this country when we can't identify the peripheries of the job. We found the money. In this country, we were able to buy 900,000 waste bins when we had 150,000 that were still to be distributed. It is for the leader to determine where you put the resources in. Those monies I'm talking about, they did not come from the ports. They did not come from the sky. They came from our natural resources. Can you tell where this money came from? Are you smarties? Contract details. The papers show that the money was paid before the contract was signed. Ask Occupy Ghana. When you have a president who is so willing to pay monies even before he signs a contract, it tells you where his heart is. His heart is in empowering a few. This country fortunately has a president who is interested in securing the future. And remember that this month, we don't only have the rollout of the free SHS. We have the return. We have the the restoration of the teacher training allowance, which a previous government told us that could not be sustained. What is sustainable? You need commitment to preserve a program. We have the commitment to preserve it. And these are snippets of what they might do in the future. If they are saying that you can't sustain this program and the commitment is not there, it is my prayer that this government will be in place for as long as possible so that we keep it running. I'm saying so because we were left with a 1.2 billion debt in NHIS, which nearly crippled the program. We are trying to revive it. So it is a signal to Ghanaians. Make sure you keep a government who has an interest in the program it rolls out.
The NHIS was collapsing.
Oh, do I need to tell you?
You mean because it was riddled with that?
Yeah, but what will collapse the program?
Okay. That's okay.
And
minority and civil society groups, they're raising concerns about the bill establishing the special prosecutor.
Yeah.
And we had a number of concerns being raised by the minority leader, Harun Idrisu, because I haven't read the bill in itself. I think I need to get a copy. But he says that there's a section that says I'm sure there's a clause there that indicates that is the Attorney General that will still sanction which cases, etc. And then I think it depends on how much has been embezzled, that will be categorized.
You know,
and there have been some new propositions made by the minority leader.
I've read the bill. I've read the bill.
You have a copy?
Yes, I think I have a soft copy. I've read the bill, and most of the criticisms or the comments being raised are not, I mean, they hold some water. There's some truth in them. You see, when you read the bill carefully, the bill in the introduction says clearly that the office is intended to focus on activities that border on corruption by people in high places, political leaders, public officers, and all that. Now, there is still some relationship between the AG's office and the independent prosecutor. And that is where people raise
the special prosecutor. Sorry, it's not the same as the independent prosecutor.
The special prosecutor. That's why people raise questions about the level of independence of the prosecutor, whether it's absolute or it's partial. And it is true, when you look at the structure, the special prosecutor, if you look at the bill now, has been given he has some protection. Let me use that word. Protection as in, there are clearly defined activities which he can commit himself to, or she can commit it, depending on who holds the office. There are limits also defined as to what cannot be done by the special prosecutor, term of office and all that. I think most of those provisions guarantee some level of, appreciable level of independence. But the fact that the prosecutor still works sort of under the AG or with the AG is what makes them raise issues. I think the bill is supposed to transcend governments. Assuming the NDC comes in 25 years or 40 years or whatever, they would still also either use the bill in its whole form or maybe tweak it a little. Once it will apply to many governments, my suggestion is that we should take most of the criticisms and see how to work on the bill. The fact that this government withdrew the bill at a point or after they've raised questions and sent it back to the committee shows that we admit as a government that it's a bill that is not absolute in terms of wholeness. It needs some workings, and we are going to do that. As for the issues raised by the, how do we call it, the minority, some of them border on discretion. You see, the president with his team, if they decide that the special prosecutor should work under the AG, structurally, that can be the orientation of this government. If the orientation is that it should not be so, we are not necessarily compelled to do what they are saying. But the arguments that follow their reason is what we have to look into and see whether we deserve to change it. You
don't think the argument is plausible?
Oh, you see, as for theirs,
it's reasonable.
Theirs is that once you want it to be independent, leave the man on his own. He should not have even a connection with the AG. That is the point they are making.
But it makes a lot of sense because it means that.
Of course,
it means that the special prosecutor will not be independent after all.
No. You see, it's the
because it means that the special prosecutor and the way the special prosecutor will act, the cases that the special prosecutor will be working on.
Let me give you a fine example.
Will be at the beck and call.
Let me give you a fine example, and then you understand what is happening. The special prosecutor, if you read the provisions, has an appreciable level of independence. But once he's working with the AG, they raise an issue that the independence is not absolute. It's just like Parliament, where you have some MPs in Parliament who are part of the executive. People have said, how can Parliament be? It's true, but there is an appreciable level of independence because most of the time there's consensus building in Parliament. We take it, in their practice, there's some appreciable level of independence, but others raise issue of having elements also within the executive. So it's the same with this. When you read the bill, there are a lot of dictates which show that this man must be on this.
I'll take the bill and read it.
Yeah.
Is it independent or special prosecutor's bill?
It's a special prosecutor's bill. Let's make that. Let's see. Because if you look at, I've read in some jurisdictions who an independent prosecutor is and the kind of work that they do. And then we have special prosecutors in the US, I believe. That's their sole work. Yes.
The office of the special prosecutor that the government is contemplating is something that most practitioners and governance, civil society, have talked about in the past. It's been one of the issues that most constitutional experts have talked about. The Attorney General, the Minister for Justice also being the Attorney General. And so it has been the talk of many that we should make an attempt to decouple these two so that the Minister for Justice will remain a legal advisor to president and government, while the Attorney General would be in charge of public prosecutions. And so that has been a long argument. And I actually buy into that concept and strategy that let's do that, partly to deal with the issue of perceived persecution of political opponents. Because corruption, as we all agree, is not good for our country. White-collar corruption, we must tackle it head-on. And so any attempt to fight corruption is good. And so I actually go with that, with the thinking of creating the office of a special prosecutor, not as in the way it is being done now, but as decoupling that one from the office of the Minister of Justice.
Very well.
Now, our challenge as a minority with this issue has to do with some constitutional challenges. Now, if you say you want to deal with the perception of prosecution, so when you are prosecuting political opponents, it is not seen as a witch hunt, but a fight against corruption. And in your answer would be to create the office of a special prosecutor. Now, you cannot do that successfully without going to amend Article 88, which clearly says that the Minister for Justice and the Attorney General is the sole prosecutor on behalf of the state. He's the only person clothed with authority to prosecute people on behalf of the state. Any other institution seeking to do that can only, per the current constitutional arrangement, can only do that with a prior approval by the Minister for Justice and the Attorney General. Commission on Human Rights and Administrative Justice and YOCO, these are all institutions that deal with corruption, but they cannot prosecute without an express approval of the Attorney General. In fact, the Attorney General will direct the direction and pace of prosecutions. And so this one should have been an attempt to make the special prosecutor fully independent. I listened to Honorable Ben Abdallah, who is the chairman of the committee, a very nice man. I admire him from a distance. He admitted on radio yesterday that per the current arrangement, the special prosecutor will not be entirely independent of the executive, and that we think is not good. Now, even when you read the bill, they are talking about prosecuting public officers. And so if a private company was to engage in corruption, remember in corruption cases, both the giver and the receiver are both culpable. And so if you say that the special prosecutor can only deal with public officers, if there was a private entity involved in a corrupt act, are you saying that the special prosecutor can only deal with the public officer and leave the private sector? They are also talking about politically exposed people. The bill is also targeting to deal with those who are politically exposed. The question is, who is politically exposed? Is it a member of parliament, the constituency secretary in Tamale South or Tamale North who has a business interest? And so there are still some gray areas that they need to engage the public on, but the way the bill stands now would suffer some legal challenges, that if they want to establish an independent prosecutor.
Well, that's what we're going through the processes and the views are being sought.
Exactly, but they seem to, you see, this matter came up when the Minister for Justice appeared before the opponents committee.
I remember.
And look, I listened to the two deputy ministers at the ministry during their vetting, including even the minister. They were very defensive of the current position of government. And that is worrying, that they don't seem to be making themselves amenable to some suggestions. But let's see how it goes. We would support anything that would fight corruption, that would deal with white-collar corruption and protect the public purse. But we will not be part of any process that will create a resemblance of a special prosecutor, when indeed it's not a special prosecutor. No, we won't be part of such an act. The president is a lawyer. He's surrounded himself with, at the Flagstaff House with a lot of lawyers. I'm not a lawyer. It shouldn't take you anything to know that what they are doing is unlawful. For instance, if you don't amend Article 88. Why? If this is what we want to do, if the current bill is what we want to go through, then we should leave YOCO to do it. YOCO can do it. There's no need. There's no need.
Yes.
There's no need.
The legality or otherwise of a bill is not within the bosom of a political party. It can
I'm not here as an NDC secretary.
No,
remember, I'm not here as the NDC secretary.
But
I'm a member, just like
Parliament.
you, a member of Parliament, and our primary role is to make laws.
I know. So
are you saying that the press, or
are
you saying that the views of the minority leader were political?
No. What I've been
He said because we belong to NDC.
First of all,
I think that was not
see, I was the same person who said that.
I was not a very palatable comment.
I was the same person who said that.
Do you agree?
I was the same person who said the criticisms are necessary to fine-tune the bill, and that the withdrawal in Parliament send it back to the committee.
You listen to the legal luminaries, and then you have further reading on
because of the challenges.
No, it was late without the 14 days.
Without the Gazette, I know.
And so it had nothing to do with the content.
Roland, let me land by saying that.
It had nothing to do with the content.
Let me land by saying that.
Even lame jokes.
I was quiet when you were talking.
Land and let's end this
and don't crash.
Because he referenced the minority leader and referring to.
What's wrong with him? He's a Ghanaian.
I'm not saying there's something
wrong. And a lawmaker.
You raise issues about legality of the document. I mean, constitutional agreement, whether it agrees with the constitution or not. And I said that is not within the bosom of a political party to determine. Now, wait, but that is true. What I've said
What's
is.
What's the political party here? I'm not here as.
You made reference to your leader. He's the minority leader of the opposition.
So because he belongs to the minority, his view doesn't matter.
But
the minority is a parliamentary term.
Please, you see, I've not said so. What I'm saying
is you're talking about the opposition party.
He was made in a press conference.
Not as no. It was not a press conference. Listen.
No. The statements. Harun's statements on this the special prosecutor. He said it as the face of the party in opposition. Is that not it? Why are we not trying to hear?
As the leader of the minority in Parliament. And we made these same arguments on the floor.
And the minority.
These same arguments were raised on the floor.
No, I just want you to put that into perspective.
These arguments were raised on the floor.
I can help you with the constitution. There is a difference on paper. But in reality, you understand what I'm saying. It's like when we were in opposition, making a statement in Parliament.
I get your point.
No, let me land.
You don't behave like you guys in opposition. You are irresponsible.
I just wanted.
We're not like you.
I just wanted. When we were talking about competence in opposition, I just wanted to cite just one thing here to tell you what we meant by having the capacity to roll out or to run this country. We had a minister of state who said that it was only possible to roll out this program in 20 years. And Dr. Matthew Poku Prempe, like
prosecutor bill,
please, has rolled out this program.
Please wrap up. I want to wrap up.
With a special prosecutors bill, Roland, we need it. If you know you are clean, you should not have fears.
We
need it. If you know you are clean, you should not have fears.
Dr. Okoboy is a member of Parliament for Lojokuku. Thanks for joining me, Dr. Okoboy. And then also Abdulazim Mohammed is a member of Parliament for Myong. And I've enjoyed the discussion, so I'll go do further reading on cyber. Are you saying it's on the net? The bill?
Yeah, it's on the net.